In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm your host and financial advisor, Rick Everett with Market Advisory Group, and we've got a full complement of panelists for this show, to include financial advisor with Market Advisory Group, Julie Newton. With Market Tax Services, one of our tax professionals, Susan Curtis. With Market Medicare Advisors healthcare professional, Mark Benefiel. And from our estate planning team, Eidelman Law Firm, attorney Doug Tschauder. Welcome in, everyone. For our regular viewers, we welcome you back. And for some of you that may be tuning in for the first time, we're a show dedicated to helping folks just like you avoid disaster and costly mistakes in retirement. A full team working together to help people with not just investment, but tax, Medicare, income, and estate planning. Julie, before the show, we were talking about your clients, Greg and Karen, and how they were able to enjoy the benefits of working with a complete team instead of just a financial advisor. Tell us more about their story.
Well, so Greg and Karen, like you said, have been clients for a little bit of time. They knew about our team approach because obviously we talked about that when they first came to see us, but they hadn't needed all the other pieces. Karen had still been working, Greg was retired, but they hadn't needed, as much of our service as before. And so in a recent review, when we sat down, we started talking about how their situation had changed. And we realized they needed to be able to take advantage of more of our services instead of just the investment piece.
So where did the conversation start?
Well, it started with Karen had taken early retirement, and so she and Greg decided they wanted to do some side businesses. It's something we see a lot with retirees. They want to keep busy, keep active, and so they had bought a couple of rental properties, as well as Karen had started a little bit of a bakery business. And the concern was that if they didn't kind of set things up correctly, that they might run into some issues in a variety of ways. So we were able to get that conversation started specifically with liability claims. That was Karen's big concern, was I don't want to run into something with one of the businesses where a liability claim wipes out all our assets.
So oftentimes when people have these concerns with their financial situation and with their financial advisors, it leads to a phone number for a referral to someone outside of an office that they can call for help. But we don't do things that way here.
No, we do not. That's one of the advantages of having this entire team, is all I had to do when I recognized where we needed to start first, step into the hallway, make sure Doug was available, and I was able to bring him into the conference room so we could have that consultation with estate planning in real time.
Doug Tschauder with Eidelman Law Firm, our estate planning team. So where did the conversation begin with Greg and Karen?
Well, Greg and Karen actually had an estate plan that had already been in place. They had a trust that was established back in 2018, but they hadn't done any changes to it or even revisited it at all since then. Now, we typically recommend every 3 to 5 years or so that folks should take a look at their their estate plan and make sure everything is current, because life happens. There are new additions to the family, whether that's grandkids or spouses or children or different things like that happen, or somebody may have passed away. But also what happens is sometimes tax laws change and we need to make revisions based on that. So sat down and met with Greg and Karen, and we talked about their concerns with the business. And like Julie had said, they had some concerns of what happens if there's some liability. You wouldn't hope that there would be any kind of liability issues with a bakery or with rental property, but those things do happen. And they wanted to make sure their other assets were protected. So we talked about the idea of setting up something where the businesses would be isolated unto themselves to reduce that liability.
So are you referring to an LLC in this case?
Yes, it's a limited liability corporation, or what's called an LLC, but it does just what the name implies, is that it limits the liability of that entity. Now, one thing is that folks, when they do something like this, they have to kind of isolate those particular businesses so that the money from those businesses doesn't go to other businesses or to other assets that they have. But when they do that, they can limit the concerns or any liabilities of that company to the company itself. And then one other thing we were able to do was to also set it up so that if something were to happen to Greg and Karen, that the businesses could then become part of the trust in order to distribute them according to how the trust would.
Now, I would have to venture a guess that most people, when they think of an estate planning attorney, they don't think of someone who's going to help them set up an LLC.
Well, we try to take a look and assist where we can with a lot of different things. So business ownership, or a lot of times folks have a family farm or different kind of assets like that, or even partnerships and different things, that we look at what how those companies or how those entities play into their estate plan and try to work with that. And sometimes it does involve creating an LLC or setting up other entities. A lot of times with farm families, folks may set up a separate trust specifically for the farm.
So in essence, what you're doing is you're helping to relieve or take away some of the risk from these endeavors that are post-retirement.
Absolutely, yes, because the thing you don't want to have happen is if something would happen with the business where it gets sued or something like that, that other assets that are outside of that business can get drawn into it as a result of a lawsuit.
So hence the isolation of assets through the LLC.
That's right, yes.
So when it comes to estate planning, Doug, there's a lot more than just wills and trusts that you participate in helping clients that are approaching or in retirement.
Yeah, and it's, again, part of the overall holistic view of trying to work together and making sure we don't, when I'm meeting somebody on the estate planning side, I want to make sure that if there are other issues that they're experiencing, that if there are other folks on the team that can help out, that we get that taken care of.
And I know for a fact, estate planning and taxes go together, estate planning and financial advising goes together, so the team approach comes together in unison to help with the focus on the client in front of us.
Yes.
Julie, more times than not, it's the whole team that people are wanting to visit with us about.
Oh, that's so true, Rick. You know, every single person that comes into our office, sits down in our conference room with us, every single person is just always amazed. Oh, I don't have to call someone. You're not going to give me a phone number or a name. I know a guy down the street, whatever. They're always just so amazed that we do it all under one roof, because it's so much more expedient. You know, it doesn't matter what the problem is or what the concern is. If they can get that answered in that moment, it is a huge benefit and a huge relief for everybody.
Expedient, efficient, and smart. So at Market Advisory Group, you don't have to go across town to get answers about taxes or Medicare or estate planning. Here, you can get answers to your concerns in real time. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no obligation visit with our full team, our operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website. There you can find informational classes that we put on throughout the community, or submit a question for possible use in a future show. When we come back, we'll see how else we're able to help Karen and Greg, and that comes your way right after this.
Out on the water, there is a moment. Perfect synchronization. The team working together in harmony to reach their goal. Now, imagine finding a team of financial professionals to help run your course down the river of retirement. Market Advisory Group is that team. Financial advisors, tax professionals, estate planning attorneys, and Medicare advisors. All in the same boat. If you don't have a team like this in one place, it can become a hassle to relay information between them. When you come to Market Advisory Group, we bring everyone together for you to get you answers in real time, to help make sure you don't miss something that puts your unique plan off course. You shouldn't be the one doing all the work to keep your retirement on pace. You should have a team in the boat with you. Your voice telling them where you're at, where you'd like to end up, and how you want to get there. And at that point, everyone falls into sync, all pulling in the same direction, toward the same purpose. Your retirement's financial security. We are Market Advisory Group, proud sponsor of Tschauder Rowing.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. In this episode, we're talking about Greg and Karen and how they were able to take advantage of the many services that Market Advisory Group and the team can offer. Eidelman Law Firm was able to get them set up with an estate plan and LLCs for their new businesses. Julie, what was next?
So Karen and Greg had been working with a tax professional for several years. But then a couple of years ago, she retired. And so the concern was, well, what's going to happen now? Karen had been doing the taxes herself because it was fairly simple when all they had was her income and Social Security for Greg. So it was a matter of, well, what are we going to do now with these new businesses? Things are going to get a lot more complicated. And so I said to them, well, you know what? We can help you with that because we have someone who can help you with your tax preparation.
And that someone in this case, I would assume, is Susan Curtis with Market Tax Services. What are some of the first steps that new Market Tax Services clients have to take to get started?
Well, the first thing that we need to get started with a new client is the most recent copy of their tax return. It gives us a better understanding of their income situation and so forth. The next thing we would need would be copies of all their tax documents, W-2s if they're still working, 1099s, anything that would go into income and any adjustments. And then once we have all the documentation that we need and they sign the engagement agreement, we are good to get started.
So case specific, was there anything different about Greg and Karen's return that might make it a little more complicated or something people might need to keep in mind hearing about their story?
Their return was a little bit more complicated because of the rental properties that they had acquired. With the LLC that Doug had created, we're able to keep the rental income and expenses separate, which is very important. And then the other thing too is when you have rentals, you need to keep a good log of all of your expenses and make sure you keep those receipts and bring all that with you to your appointment.
So you said they have to keep all of the documents as they pertain to the LLC separate, the expenses and things like that. Will Greg and Karen need to file separate returns for those LLCs?
So they will need a separate return for the LLCs and they'll also need a separate return for the trust. But what's nice is that the LLC and the trust, those returns produce a K-1, which then goes into their personal return.
Doug Tschauder with Eidelman Law Firm. Is this a prime example of a tax professional and an estate planning attorney working together?
Yes, absolutely. And that's something where a lot of times as folks get more complicated assets, having the tax professional involved in those discussions makes all the difference.
So you two are interacting quite a bit when it comes to trust preparation, tax planning, I'm assuming?
Yes, we are.
Julie, another example of a whole team coming together. How often do you find when people come to you and they're meeting with you on an initial complimentary consultation or visit just to sit down and kind of do a checkup of where they're at in their retirement planning? How often is it that they're just wanting to meet with a financial advisor?
You know, I would say maybe that's their original motivation for coming to see us, is just the financial piece. But a lot of people know that there's more to what they need than just that financial piece. So one of the first questions that we always ask is, you know, what are your concerns? Why are you here to see us today? And 9 times out of 10, I think the first words out of their mouth is taxes. I don't want to give any more to Uncle Sam than I absolutely have to. The second thing that's always a concern is, am I going to run out of money? And what a lot of people don't realize is that tax piece and running out of money can go hand in hand. So if you're not planning appropriately for taxes, that running out of money thing might be a big concern.
Having an effective and comprehensive retirement plan is a very intricate thing, and these intricacies are exactly why you need a team working together so none of the little details fall through the cracks. At Market Advisory Group, we have that team standing by, ready, willing, and able to help you with your needs. To set up a complimentary, no-obligation visit with our team, operators are standing by right now to take your call at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. There you can view past episodes, submit a question for possible use on a future show, and schedule an appointment online if you'd care to do so. We've got one more segment coming your way, and in our final segment, we'll take a look at what's next for Karen and Greg in their retirement planning. And that comes your way right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have, by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
I need a place to go to see about my investments. Ask my friends if they know about holistic retirement. Everything in one place. Estates, taxes, and Medicare. People meeting face to face. Advisors to help me get there.
At Market Advisory Group. Retirement under one roof. At Market Advisory Group. We're invested in you.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. In this episode, we're continuing our conversation about Greg and Karen. Julie, we've talked about estate planning and we've talked about taxes. What's next for this couple?
Healthcare, as always. So in Karen's situation, she was just so excited, so ready to be in retirement that she didn't stop to think about the consequences of that in terms of healthcare. So initially, like most people do, she'd taken on a COBRA, which is a pretty pricey thing, as most people know. And so that was getting ready to run out. So the conversation turned to, what are we going to do about healthcare? How are we going to make sure that Karen has the appropriate healthcare insurance until she turns 65, which is a few years away.
And I bet you said, I know a guy.
I did say that. How did you guess?
Because I know a guy too. His name is Mark Benefiel with Market Medicare Advisors. He's a health insurance professional. Mark, it's a pretty common discussion with the people we meet with. The idea of leaving a job and retiring is pretty appealing to most people. But when it actually happens, there's a lot of things to consider, like healthcare. Market Medicare Advisors, how did that conversation go?
Well, like you mentioned, like a lot of people, they start going into retirement and hadn't necessarily thought through all those intricacies. And healthcare is a big piece for a couple of reasons. One is we're required to have healthcare, right, of some sort. It has to be credible healthcare. COBRA is a great option, or sometimes it's an only option. Sometimes it's not a great option, but it is an option for some people. It has a tendency to be pricey sometimes as people consider those options, but going without health care at all is usually much more expensive than even a COBRA policy. So, in the hierarchy of trying to decide which is the best route for them, we had to ask some questions and start to understand their situation so we could figure out what the best method might be. We have kind of a hierarchy that we go through when we're trying to decide which plans are which. And it turned out that COBRA was probably not going to be a long-term solution, and we need to look at some other options.
And it would stand to reason that the cost of COBRA is going to be much higher than what you were paying through your employer, especially if the employer was picking up half the premium or all the premium. That half that the employer was picking up is now on the shoulders of the person who's wanting to continue with the COBRA. Now, I know there's income restrictions with the Affordable Care Act marketplace insurance. Was that something that could affect Karen?
Absolutely. When we look at that, one of the first options that we look at when we're looking at the income and what it costs for health care is oftentimes we look at the spouse. Is the spouse still working? Well, obviously the spouse was not. He was retired as well. He was already of retirement age, and so that wasn't an option. COBRA was going to run out, so where do we go? We go into either two options. We have private plans, or most people are going to look at the ACA marketplace. And there are some income restrictions, and what that has to do is with subsidies. And what we found was for 2023, because Karen was still working during 2023, her income was going to be at a point where she wasn't going to be eligible for any subsidies. So she wasn't going to be able to discount the health care costs. But going into the next year, into 2024, when the income is down lower, now she may be eligible for some subsidies from the government, which could drastically reduce what the costs of her possible health care premiums might be on a monthly basis.
When it comes to credible coverage, that was something that you brought up. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming most of the transition of moving from private pay insurance through an employer to Medicare, they're coming from an already credible coverage. Right. But what are some of the technicalities, if you will, yeah, of a credible coverage?
For her situation, because she was 62, credible only applies in that she has certain levels of coverage, and a little complicated to get into this setting, but it has to do with the level of coverage she has. When they say credible, what we mean is it equal to or greater than what might be offered by the government? So in this case, so if she can go on COBRA, but now if she was a little bit older, if she's going into 65 into Medicare coverage itself, this is a little known fact that COBRA coverage is not considered credible coverage. So you can't have post 65 have COBRA because the government does not consider that credible coverage.
Really? Okay.
That is correct. Now prior to that, that's not as much of an issue. She has certainly freedom. She has to have policies of some type. But we weren't as concerned with that because we have this gap. We have a 3-year period where we have to get her covered. And the way we're going to do that in her case is go into the ACA marketplace, put in her doctors, put in her Medicaid, do all the stuff just like we would with Medicare, but what's going to return to us are private plans that are available through the marketplace. And the subsidies, as they call them, all have to do with your income. And there are different subsidies at different levels. It's very, very, very important that we estimate the correct income, and that's why it's really important to work with the tax side of our business as well, to make sure that where they're at from the income that they're taking in retirement doesn't necessarily kick them out, because that's a ramification a lot of people don't think of. you can have $1 difference between one level income and another and lose on a $700 or $800 a month subsidy.
Mark, we've got about a minute left, but I did want to touch on this because I'm hearing about it more and more around the conference tables when I'm meeting with clients for the first time. But it seems like there's an increased interest in long-term care insurance. And is that something Market Medicare Advisors can help with?
Absolutely. One thing that people don't realize is that Medicare does not include long-term care. There are some skilled nursing and some other things that it does cover for a very short period of time, but if you have to have more extensive care, it doesn't cover that and doesn't pay for that. So if that's a concern that you have, then we definitely need to sit down and talk, because there are definitely long-term care options that we can help you with, and also working directly with yourself as the advisor, because there may be some long-term riders associated with that could be attached to current life insurance policies that they already have.
Nice.
So there are definitely options that are out there that they may have available to them. They don't even realize they have available to them.
At Market Advisory Group, we're a team, and it's a team of financial, tax, healthcare, and estate planning advisors working under one roof. So you don't have to drive across town to tell your tax advisor what your financial advisor said, and then drive to go and see an estate planning attorney, and so on and so on. Why should you be doing all the work? If you'd like a visit with our team, please reach out right now at 316-252-8707. And be sure and check out our website at ionretirement.com. That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Rick Everett along with the entire team, reminding you we're here to keep an eye on retirement.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client and prospect names mentioned on this show have been changed to protect the identities of the individuals discussed. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.